You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Weird Science Comics YouTube channel, where I'm going to be going through Gold Goblin number 2. And here we are again with yet another Dark Web tie-in, and this one is by Christopher Cantwell, so it has to be great, right? I mentioned in my review for issue number 1 that I was kind of upset that this book was even a thing. It's not that I don't like Norman as Gold Goblin, it's just that I really like the mystery of whether Norman was telling the truth or not about wanting redemption in The Amazing Spider-Man. It's funny because while I bitch and moan on the reg about the other dangling mystery Zeb Wells was doing, the Norman one was actually interesting and well played, but that's kind of gone now as Cantwell takes us into the mind of Norman once again to show us the twisted and tormented man that just can't seem to forget his sins, and tells us about it over and over and over. But before I go on, I do want to mention that during my review for Dark Web Miss Marvel, I told everyone how the Dark Web stole my email address, and until they returned it, I was going to take an extra point off my scores. Well, someone got a hold of me and informed me that the Dark Web that took my email address is not the same Dark Web that we get here in this event. I really don't believe them and think they might be in cahoots, but I will suspend my policy while I look into the matter. And really, Christopher Cantwell does not need any sort of handicap here. Now, before we get into the review, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, enable the notifications, and let me know what you think of Gold Goblin number 2, the Dark Web event overall. Maybe even let me know what you think of the Zeb Wells deal with Gold Goblin as well. But here are the credits for Gold Goblin number 2. It's written by Christopher Cantwell, art by Lan Medina, colors by Antonio Fabella, and letters by VC's Joe Sabino. Here is the recap. The forces of Limbo have been unleashed upon New York City by Chasm, the clone of Spider-Man, and the Goblin Queen, the clone of Marvel Girl, as they try to take revenge on those who've wronged them. Turns out back in his Green Goblin days, Norman Osborn wronged Chasm, better known as Ben Reilly, a whole lot. Using his resemblance to Peter Parker, Chasm infiltrated Oscorp and sabotaged the Gold Goblin tech before beating Norman unconscious. And there is the recap, and away we go. The issue opens with a weird play by Cantwell, and in my mind, it's a bit of a misplay. You just heard in the recap that the last issue ended with Ben Reilly beating Norman unconscious, so why not start this issue making the reader think that Ben may have killed Norman? I say this because the issue opens with it looking like Ben might have killed Norman, but it's Green Goblin Norman. Spidey's there. It's obvious this is just a I'm unconscious having nightmares before it's revealed to be just that. Now, between issues, Liz Allen has somehow saved Norman and taken him up to his lab. But now that he's woken up, she wants him to come home with her to be with Normie and Stanley. Now, why didn't she just take him home while he was unconscious? I guess we needed to see Norman turning wrenches on his glider, while Cantwell has Norman's assistant Barb deliver one of the cringiest lines I've read in quite some time. Now, I think about it, and actually I think Cantwell wanted to deep dive into his main character and show that while the rest of New York City is very concerned with inanimate objects coming to life and trying to eat people, Norman's really concerned with one very important thing: who is going to roll his calls? Now, after seeing that Owen Ward, the current Jack-o'-lantern, is in the hospital after his fight with Norman last issue, we head off to see that Norman has agreed to go home with Liz. Barb's going there with them, and after sideswiping a hot dog cart and driving through Central Park, he crashes their car into a tree and then has a conversation with his long-dead dog, Mucky. And if you didn't know, you find out that Norman killed Mucky as a kid, which is really messed up, which is par for the course here. And we get it. Norman can't forget his sins. Done in a subtle way, this could have been something interesting, but Cantwell is just too heavy-handed for that. Plus, I hope someone mentions down the line that forgetting your sins is hardly redeeming yourself or making yourself better. Maybe that is a bit of a twist. Maybe that is going to be a focus of this later. But right now, it really feels like Cantwell thinks that to redeem yourself, you just have to pretty much make yourself a clean slate to forget all the bad things that you have done. The heavy-handedness continues, though, as they hoof it off to Alchemex, where Norman runs into Ashley Kafka. I was wondering when she would show up in this event, because we have an event with the Goblin Queen. We certainly need Queen Goblin in it as well. And if you have been following what's been going on with Norman since Nick Spencer's Sin Eater story in The Amazing Spider-Man, this will probably interest you more than someone just popping in here for the Dark Web event. Norman does find out that his sins are what turned Ashley into the Queen Goblin, and that Peter knew this all along and didn't tell him. Cantwell, as heavy-handed as always, though, throws in a line that surely confirms something we all know will happen. Norman will take back his sins eventually, most likely to save Kafka. But for now, he keeps on running. But those pesky sins might be getting too fast for him. The issue ends with Ghost Gwen Stacy back again, messing with Norman's mind, and the Jack-o'-lantern preparing for round 2. And this is hardly a Dark Web tie-in issue. It doesn't even feel like a Dark Web tie-in issue. There's a couple mentions of things, but really, this is more concerned with Norman and his kind of road to redemption, maybe coming into a U-turn here because of his sins coming back at him. It's also hardly a good issue as well. The art is very uneven, very, very uneven, and I've said it a couple times already, it's just so heavy-handed. Christopher Cantwell is not a subtle writer. This is a story that needs a bit more care than what he is giving it. But I'm sure there'll be people who agree and disagree with me. But overall, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10 and hope that Cantwell gives it a more delicate touch from here on out, because this should be better, could be better, and he might just kind of be fumbling through this as we go on. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and enable those there notifications. But that's it. Let me know what you thought, because this whole deal, we're in it. This is the battle. It's us against the Dark Web. We're hunkering down. We'll get through this all together, and then we'll see what happens by the end. But thanks, everybody, and I will talk to you all later.
You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.